All right, the next type of pronoun we're going to look at is relative pronouns. Relative pronouns are pronouns that relate to some word or phrase mentioned before. And usually it's a noun that's mentioned immediately before. So the relative pronoun would come right after the noun it's related to. The word or phrase that it's related to is called the antecedent. The antecedent. The relative pronouns include who, whom, whose, that, and which. Of course, there are more, but these are the most common ones. With relative pronouns, they have the same form regardless of the number of the antecedent. So you could be referring to a noun that's plural or singular, but the pronoun isn't going to change. All right, let's start off with who. Who is generally used to refer to humans. Who takes a different form depending on the case. So for the nominative case, this is when it's the subject of a verb, we say who. In the possessive case, whose. And finally, in the objective case, whom. So here are some examples. For the nominative, the man who knocked on the door is my neighbor. For the possessive, the person whose book I borrowed is generous. For the objective, the student whom you called is present. So in the first example, the antecedent is man. In the second example, the antecedent is person. And in the final example, the antecedent is student. All right, now let's look at which. Which is applied to animals and inanimate things, but not to people. So in the nominative case, we say the desk which is broken should be replaced. In the possessive, this is the company whose employees are on strike. So there is no possessive. So which is not used in the possessive. Case, we use whose. However, it is used in the objective. The book which I read is on the desk. In the first example, the antecedent is desk. In the second example, it's company. And in the final example, the antecedent is book. And notice how with each one of these antecedents, they're mentioned, or it's mentioned right before the relative pronoun. All right, now let's look at that. That may be used in place of who and its various forms, and which, and so is applied to both persons and things. So we could say that in terms of application, that has the broadest application. In the nominative case, we say the man that lost his wallet has just called. In the possessive, this is the car whose driver was arrested by the police. So that is not used in the possessive either, just like which we use whose instead. In the objective, this is the movie that you watched yesterday. In the first example, the antecedent is man. In the second example, the antecedent is car. And in the final example, and the objective example, the antecedent is movie.